My name is Jason Statham.
What incarnation?
Welcome to a new segment where we talk about a topic about another topic. Today's topic.
Okay, so this is your guide to reboots, remakes, reimaginations, sequels, prequels, adaptations, and rebookals.
Or you do what I do, the same movie over and over.
I hope you get a comment somehow from Jason Statham. Hey, you wanker!
just forward the episodes to him on
It's
Twitter.
like, look here, you bloody tosser.
So, what prompted this discussion, Mitch? What did you found an article or something?
Well, we saw the article that I shared with you two that was talking about how overdone reboots are and how
It's
pretty
just
much
annoying.
Yeah, people are annoyed with seeing the same stuff over and over and over, and how when they reboot it, half the time it's worse than the original.
Okay.
So it's like, why?
Or it's just somebody wants to do their version of the same thing.
Yeah.
What is a reboot?
Well, the definition that I had here says a reboot discards continuity to recreate its characters, plot lines, and backstory from the beginning.
An example being
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So you had like
Spider-Man would be
Spider-Man 1 and 2, Tobey Maguire, and Spider-Man 3, which we don't really count because that movie was terrible. But then they did the Andrew Garfield ones,
right,
which in and of themselves weren't bad Spider-Man movies.
right,
They were pretty good.
right.
But it was like, why?
Because they failed the franchise. MCU started selling movies and making lots of money. Sony was like, we got a powerhouse with Spider-Man. We got to keep the ball rolling.
Well, I mean, those are more of a remake, though, because it's using the same source material, but it's just changing up some small parts of the story.
Well, I think a remake would be, like, for instance, Psycho was the Hitchcock version. It got a
Great
shot. It got a shot-for-shot remake with what's his name from Wedding Crashers?
Vince Vaughn?
Vince Vaughn. Yeah, he
Oh,
was,
yeah.
He
That was
did,
not a good movie.
Yeah, and they did a shot-for-shot remake of that Psycho movie, and there are other versions of that being done. You know,
Well, for the definition that I got for remake was a remake is a recreation of the source material to closely resemble the original, may only changing things to fit modern society.
okay. So like Cinderella, they just did a remake of that.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
she's like I think the movie this was the Amazon thing that came out like this month.
I haven't watched that one, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Something about like she wanted to be a strong, independent woman, and
Who don't need no man.
the prince quits his job to like support her in her dreams. So he just decides he's not going to be a prince anymore.
I've abdicated my position.
So
That's just stupid. It's like you're a prince, you're royalty. It's like, come on, what's wrong with you?
we've seen that happen before.
If I was a prince, like, you know, in the royal family, and some girl's like, you need to leave the princedom to be with me, I'd be like, bye.
Well,
I'm a prince. I literally don't have to do anything. I wallow around in with my inheritance.
the redheaded one from the current English lineage, what's his name? Is it Harry?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He left to go to America with what's her face. So there you go.
And it's happened in the royal family.
Yeah,
How'd that work out for him?
I don't know. What is he doing? Like,
I think he still has like a
construction or
military pension.
oh, does he?
Because he used to fly for the Royal Air Force or something.
Yeah, he's pretty much been shunned.
Yeah.
We
But-
don't talk about him anymore.
So remakes are basically the same story. A reboot would be like, what about RoboCop, for instance?
That's a reboot.
Okay.
Judge Dredd. That's a reboot because you got the Dredd one with Sylvester
Stallone.
Stallone,
Yeah.
and then they did the other one with Carl Urban.
Right. And so, but, well, okay, so let's talk about adaptations. Adaptations are like a story is based off of a book or something like that.
Mhm.
Pretty much everything in its own right is an adaptation. There's very few things, like maybe Star Wars Episode 4 is an actual standalone. Those are called spec scripts, where it's got no basis in reality from anything prior existing, even though it does have like the Hidden Fortress and other Kurosawa films. There's some influence by it, but it's still Star Wars is obviously its own standalone story.
Yes.
Yes.
RoboCop, you could say would be an adaptation of the original.
Crime-ridden Detroit.
You talking about the newer one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it changes a little bit. Like in the first one, his family's killed, and then the second one, his family's alive, and he's essentially killed, like in their driveway. But
Little Barbershop of Horrors was a 1960s film. Okay, they got a Broadway musical adapted from it. That got a 1980s film adapted from that Broadway music film. So I mean, that's all over the place too. You can't say it's a remake of the original because it's adapted from the Broadway musical. So what are we with that? So reboots are a new narrative, new story, and readjusted for the modern times. Remakes are trying to be as honorable and favor the original storyline. Okay, and then there's reimaginations.
Because there's the one they just had. I think it came out last year, the King Arthur movie, but he was a kid.
yeah,
But like you had like the original source material, more to Arthur, and then you had the many, many, many King Arthur movies, all set in the Middle Ages or prior. And then they had another one set in modern times where Arthur's a little kid and he's in primary school in England.
yeah.
And he finds a sword in the woods and a rock that no one else has ever found ever,
Right.
and pulls it out and he's king. And it's like, well, no, that's not how this works now. You can't just... Strange women lying in ponds, distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. You can't be king just because some watery tart threw a sword at you.
What would Monty Python be?
That's an adaptation.
Because he is Arthur.
He's King Arthur.
Because the sword and stuff. So yeah.
But then at the end of the movie, you're like, is this in the modern age or is this back then? Because the cops in real life show up and arrest him.
Yeah. Who knows?
And they did that as a joke, as a legit cop-out to an ending.
Yeah, they just didn't have an ending. So
They're like, we'll do a cop-out. Literally.
So Jay and Silent Bob doing their thing off of their Reboot movie that came out in 2019 does a pretty good job explaining in their version what all this is. If you want to watch a movie that solely like satirizes itself and reboots and whatnot to explain that, there's a part where they go through what is a reboot, remake, and a reimagination. So,
I mean, because you get some movies that are confusing, like the Terminator series. Like each one's like a reboot, but it's a sequel, so it's just a mess because they keep changing all the continuity of everything.
What does the article say a reimagination is?
I didn't read that one.
Okay, from what I understand, a reimagination is like you have the same kind of concept, but then you just pretend that nothing else ever existed, but it's so different from the original source material that you can't even say that's a reboot. I'm trying to think of an example.
There's I think a good example of a specific detail of something that has been just picked apart, reimagined, redone is with Star Wars with the Force.
Well, see, those are sequels though, right?
Sequels and prequels. So there's a little bit of both, but in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan talks about the Force and, it surrounds all living things, et cetera, but certain people have the power to, use the Force. And then you go back and to the prequels and they're just like, midi-chlorians, science, you can do it. You have a lot of them. It's like, all right, cool. And then the new ones, they're like, anybody can do it. And it's like, everyone's included, participation trophies for everybody. You're all Jedi.
So you're saying that different show or movie runners, or different
ruin
stuff. They
Yes.
could reimagine how the MacGuffin of whatever it does works. One example that I did read was Cinderella. Okay, the cartoon version from Disney back in the day, they made a live action version. Okay, they said that would be a reimagination because it's the same story, but it's told through a different form of the medium. I kind of argue differently. I think that if the story is still there and still the same, it's just a remake, but I don't know.
I mean, anytime they do an adaptation of something, it's always going to be a different spin. Like an example, the book that MASH is based on, the characters are totally different than what you've seen in the show.
Right.
And the book came out first, and then they got the rights, and then they did the movie that Robert Altman made. And those characters are close to the book, but they're still individual in their own ways.
Right.
And then the show came along, and they're like, we're going to go in a totally different route. We'll have the same names and stuff, but we're just forget all that.
Right. Yeah.
Like a lot of their personalities were changed and their beliefs.
I think a good example of like a reimagination would be the Mummy movies. Like you had the original Mummy.
Yes, the Tom Cruise one.
Yeah. Well, you've got that one, but then you've got the original, like 19.
Oh, with Boris Karloff.
Yeah. Whenever that one was made. Then you had the Brendan Fraser Mummy,
which were awesome.
Yeah,
the first two.
And then you've got the Tom Cruise, but like even I don't know if you would consider the Tom Cruise one a reimagination, or if it's like
I think it's a
continuation.
No, I would call it a reimagination because there's no characters that are attached to the original. Well, the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies. But
they do have like an Easter egg of the Book of the Dead is actually in the library as Tom Cruise is going past.
That's too loose, though. You can't say that that's in the same universe just because one thing exists.
I mean, if they wanted it to, it could be because the Brendan Fraser one was in like the 30s or 40s or something like that.
Right.
I think it's like the 1920s.
It might be, but it's like early 1900s, and this is that one was modern day. But yeah. I mean, like that one though, it's several different incarnations of the same thing.
Yeah,
the movie sucked.
Yeah, it did. It was bad.
I watched that and I was like, I'm watching the Brendan Fraser one because that one's just way better.
But then you got the Lost in Space. Like, wasn't it originally?
That wasn't originally a TV show.
Yes. Wasn't it originally like
black
a radio
and white
show though?
It might have been a radio.
It probably was.
Remember. But yeah, they had the TV show in 65 to 68. Then you had the 1990s movie.
Yeah.
And then you had the new Netflix show that's on right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And that would be, well, I guess you could say that that's a reboot of the TV show from the 60s because it has all the same characters, but they adapt them to modernize it to current,
I think the biggest
stuff like that.
Genre that goes through reboots, reimaginations, and everything, and like origin flips and whatever is superheroes.
Yes, I think the superhero medium is so fast moving that if they don't get something right, they're going to try it again. They're going to, maybe people are being a little bit more patient because Thor honestly shouldn't have existed after the first two movies.
But I mean, anything that they put into a movie has probably already been done in the comics. They just pull it from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like the female Thor, like that's going to be the new thing in this newest movie coming out. Well, she's been around since as like a mainstream character in the comics for almost 12 years, maybe.
Right.
And then she had like the What If series when they were doing that in the 60s and 70s. That was, she was in one of those.
So like Star Trek, for instance, when they reboot with what they call it Star Trek, the Kelvin timeline, where they take Spock and send him back in time from the original Star Trek stories of like the 70s and 80s and so on, in the TV show. Spock goes back in time, brings some Romulans with them, and then they stir up this whole new trilogy of plot lines that separate itself, even though there's some kind of like goings-on. I would call that more or less a rebootquel, okay, where you're redoing the story, but it still is in the same universe, roundabout way. And it's of the original one.
An origin of Kirk and Spock and Uhura and how they all became a crew on the Enterprise.
In their own way, not like the original story, but yes.
Even in like the more recent Star Trek movies, like there's one movie where they go back and visit the actual real Spock. Like he's on some ice planet or something like that.
Yeah,
Kirk meets him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so, and so like that's a little bit more grounded in the original source material, so you can't say that it's a reboot. But I think the only way you can get away with that is with time travel. Or the Suicide Squad movie where they just pretend like nothing else exists and whatever you see on screen that's from the previous movies, there you go. But if it's not, then we're not going to answer it.
Well, then you got movies like Ghostbusters, the modern one, where basically it was a complete reboot, but then they like showed stuff where like Dan Aykroyd was like there and like he knew about Ghostbuster stuff from the previous movies, but it was like alluded to at the beginning that none of that stuff had ever happened.
Which is dumb.
Yeah, and nobody really knows what to make of that movie.
It was not a good movie.
And see, like I think that's the problem is that this formatting of stories and their continuation, and part of me gets it from a marketing standpoint because you take a movie like Ghostbusters and you want it to be around for your children's generation, for the next generation. You want them to appreciate as much as you do, but you're watching like the 1980s Ghostbusters through their eyes, and it's a hard watch for them because it's old and cheesy and the jokes don't make sense, and why aren't there cell phones or whatever. So you try and think of a way for them to appreciate it for today's audience. Is there a way to do that? Like what do you guys think? Do you think that there's some dogs, you should just let sleeping dogs lie kind of thing.
Well, like what we were talking about in the main show was like the Lost Boys.
Yeah.
They're never going to recapture that magic that they had with that one movie because while it wasn't no blockbuster, it was a good movie. But you're never going to capture that same feel, because it was the 1980s and all that. You're never going to capture that same thing in modern.
It just seems like in the last 10 years, there's been this great push in Hollywood to just remake stuff or throw their spin on stuff. Stuff that everybody liked back then. It's like we want to do our own version.
Why do you think that there has been a significant push?
Because they ran out of ideas.
Yes,
because all the young people that watched all those things have grown up and have the ability to try and make them.
And they want to reestablish that nostalgia. Yeah. Now, in some situations, it does work.
But nostalgia is nostalgia.
Yeah.
You can't reestablish.
They're hoping that your children's generation will have that nostalgia when they grow, Like, for instance, Batman.
Okay? Well, that's what I was about to say. Like, superheroes we talked about.
But the thing about Batman, though, is special because this was before all the craziness of rebooting. I think Batman probably set the precedence.
Well, him, Spider-Man, and Superman.
Like, me and my dad have a nostalgia thing with Batman. My dad had Adam West Batman. He loves Adam West Batman. God knows why. When I was growing up, with the bomb and the shark with the painted on eyes and bat shark repellent. I watched it and I thought it was cool.
Yeah,
it was cool when we were little.
But it was funny when I was little. But when I was growing up, I'm like, I had the animated series Batman. I didn't have live action, but I had cartoon Batman. But that, to me, that was my Batman.
You had Tim Burton Batman. Didn't you watch that?
Yeah, I had Tim Burton Batman.
It came out before he was born, though.
I mean, those were still the predominant Batman movies. But we had that, and then as I had Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
Which was more like my brother's thing because as he was kind of like he watched cartoons, he had Batman Beyond and we watched that together and I liked it too.
Justice League Batman.
And then I'm sure kids down the road, my brother's kids, my niece and my nephew, or whatever, they're gonna watch some show and they'll be like, oh, Batman back in in our day, and like
The Brave and the Bold or whatever those.
That's what my buddy's little brothers used to watch. They used to watch that and we would like stand there and look and go, man, this sucks. It's like watch the animated series. That show was way better.
But like for some movies, like sometimes it's just overly accepted just to change. Like you had Tim Burton, you had Michael Keaton twice, and then you just go to Val Kilmer and George Clooney,
and nobody questions it.
Yeah, really, nobody really questioned it at the time.
I think the biggest case of that is Bond.
Yeah,
Bond has been going since 1962.
Well, Bond is arguably the first action hero. Okay, like you say, like he's a serialized action hero. Okay,
a serialized action hero,
and then he has been replaced. And probably, I wonder when Roger Moore was the second.
And Connery wasn't even the first guy to play Bond.
Well, okay, Casino Royale originally was more of a satire with Peter Sellers.
Yes.
Right? So that.
And then there was another one where David Niven played him.
Okay.
But Bond didn't become like, Bond until.
Where he took himself seriously.
Until Dr. No with Sean Connery.
Right.
But didn't eventually, because for James Bond, because they kept changing out actors, didn't they just say, oh, well, Bond is 007. That's just the moniker they get for that.
They're all 007, but there was like a reoccurring kind of bit where they think that, these orphan kids, whatever, as they're brought into MI6 and whatever, they're given the name of Bond.
No, and
the name is what continues. Like their original names are forgotten.
But it's never been confirmed.
Never been confirmed.
And the only thing that, like the Daniel Craig Bond, that makes me kind of wondering if that's true or not is that Moneypenny back when Casino Royale, the 2004 movie, was made. Is that 2004?
No, it was later. It was like 2008 or something.
Okay. When that one was
the
made.
first Craig one.
But she was in previous Bond movies, right?
No.
Judi Dench wasn't in previous Bond movies?
No, she plays M.
Okay.
She was M for...
But she acts like she has history.
Yeah, she was M for Brosnan and Craig.
Okay. So, right. So
she started with GoldenEye.
So she... but she acts like she has history from previous incarnations and Q. They have the old man
Desmond
Q.
Llewellyn was there for...
Like ever.
Connery, what's his face, who did George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Brosnan.
Right.
He was the Q for 5 different Bonds.
And so, like, if you're going to reboot the Bond, why have a new actor play Bond but the same supporting actors? And what are they trying to say by that? Is there a continuation with this universe? Does Daniel Craig's universe know that Dr. No existed at one point?
Yeah.
But if we do the Spectre bullcrap to happen with, what's his name, that with the scar on his face? What's his name?
Blofeld.
Yeah.
Who's been a villain previously.
Right. So how does this guy keep resurfacing? And I think that's the part that they've written themselves in the corner is like, well, if we're going to reboot Bond, we're going to eventually want to have Blofeld come back into it. We can't discredit all the previous incarnations of Bond. So this is our way we'll nod our hat to them, but we're going to have our own version of Blofeld. We're going to have our own version of Bond, blah, blah, blah.
I think Bond is actually the biggest rebootquel.
And see, the thing about
sequels, everything.
About those terms is they, like, this article tries to apply specific directions on what a film is, but I think movie creators don't like that. And I don't think that they don't want there to be a specific self-contained world that you can just label this as a reboot or a remake or whatever.
And Bond has done, like, they threw a lot of throwbacks to old stuff. Like in
Aston Martin coming back.
Yeah, exactly, the DB5 coming back. It's like, and then, it's like, what are you going to do, eject me? It's like, oh, there's an ejector seat.
Yeah. Yeah, so things like that. And you're like, oh, in the moment, you're like, that's cool. They did us a nod. They did us a throwback, But then you're like, but what does that really mean? Like Alfred and Batman. They had the same Alfred in all different kinds of Batman.
Well, in the first four.
Right.
The Keaton ones.
Keaton George Clooney.
Yeah, it was the same guy.
And Val Kilmer.
Well, yeah. But essentially it was like, it's supposed to be, I guess, Val Kilmer and George Clooney was Batman as he's getting older. But, I mean, the actors were so different that, I mean.
Exactly.
And then Chris Donald stayed the same with Val Kilmer and George Clooney.
Right.
Yeah.
Question is, did Val Kilmer or George Clooney ever acknowledge any of, like, the Joker or the Penguin from their continuating movies?
I know George Clooney's Batman did, like, acknowledge that the Riddler and Two-Face were locked up because they showed when they were breaking out, I think it was Freeze or whatever, that you see their stuff in Arkham Asylum, like in the evidence room.
Okay,
and stuff.
So
but that's about the extent of it.
Yeah,
they never acknowledged Catwoman when she was like a prominent figure that had become romantically involved in the second one.
Because if you think about, if you recast a character in a story that feels like it's supposed to be a continuation, if you had recasted Indiana Jones, and you got, I don't know, Tom Selleck to do Indiana Jones for Last Crusade, and you just acted like he's Harrison Ford the entire time,
it would have been weird.
It would have fallen flat.
Yeah.
So for them to try and say that, okay, this is a reimagination or a retelling, they go deeper into that realm, even though it's not a reboot or anything. It's actually just a sequel.
Yeah.
But how do you salvage all that? And honestly, it all boils down to marketing. They just decide audiences would prefer just to not care about it.
Yeah.
And
which I think is the prevalent case with Bond.
Yeah.
Because, like, every time, like, a Bond has gotten to the point where they don't want to do it anymore, it's all, like, the big news stuff. It's like, who's going to be Bond next?
Yeah.
It's like, who's going to be this character? Like, you don't think of it as, like, you're like, which actor is going to be this guy? Not who is this guy? Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, when Lord of the Rings gets rebooted, what are you going to do?
Cry.
Yeah.
They're going to do Lord of the Rings, but it's going to be all girls or something. And I'm just going to be like, why? And it'll be 2 movies.
Instead of Sam, it'll be Samantha.
Yeah, instead of Sam, it'll be Samantha. Instead of Aragorn, it'll be Tibitha, whatever the hell. It'll just be stupid. I'll hate it. I won't watch it. Even if you give it to me as a punishment, I won't do it.
Well, now it's a challenge. I hope it gets made now.
That's going to be your life's mission.
Yeah.
I already suffered through Soviet Lord of the Rings.
But see, like, Star Wars goes way out of its way
Yeah.
to keep the same actors playing the same characters. I mean, honestly,
They've got the money, too, though.
they do.
And recently, they've gone out of their way to bring back nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because they tried a little bit with Force Awakens, and it really fell flat. Force Awakens was basically Episode 4 with newer stuff.
Right. And that's the J.J. Abrams trope, is like, we're going to do same, but different.
Same. Then Rian Johnson should have been shot in the street for what he did. And then who directed the last one? I didn't even see it. J.J. Abrams. And that was just nostalgia stuff from the old one, stuff you like. Oh, yeah, bad guy, big explosions, kaboom, yeah, everybody wins.
It was a little bit of that, yeah.
Yeah, because you have one scene where you have everyone telling Rey to use the Force, and then you have another scene where every ship you can think of shows up. Yeah, in this final battle.
Which is idiotic. But then you got Star Wars' like little series of stuff going back to, like, because in the last one they were trying to retcon crap from The Last Jedi, because that movie was dumpster fire garbage.
Yeah, kind of.
A little bit.
I don't know, and I think that's another part about this is, like,
Star Wars has the worst fans.
Well, So it's got, honestly, it's done itself a disservice because it has a litany of just well-established background written canon. And then
the expanded universe.
Every new movie maker has to do their own thing.
Yeah.
And it has to be original, it has to be their own idea.
But no Star Wars fan wants their original crap.
Right.
We've read, like, if they're like, hey, we're going to do this movie. Oh, it's new. It's going to have all these females and empowerment and X-Wings. And everybody's like, why? We want Darth Revan the movie.
Well, I mean, they've got thousands, maybe millions of written pages of story that they could pull from, but they just choose not to.
Right.
Hundreds of novels
Yeah.
of Star Wars stuff, like, stuff that took place before the Skywalker stuff, thousands of years before that, thousands of years before Revan, after Revan, the Yuzan Vong War. There's so much great story and material that people wrote, and like that would be amazing if they adapted that to film.
Yeah, if they
or even
adapt that,
TV.
Yeah.
Or video games.
Yeah. Instead of trying to reboot the continuity of what happened, the Force means this or the Force means that,
Like, what's her face? Kathleen Kennedy had put out something that they're going to do like some Star Wars show, and it's going to be like all this like female empowerment stuff.
I don't know.
And it's like Star Wars didn't already have that. It's like you guys had Princess Leia from the bat. From 1977.
Yeah.
She's pulling blasters out of people's hands, shooting stormtroopers, blowing up stuff, giving out commands like she's in charge. It's like, man, what was wrong with that?
And what's interesting is when Leia died, they didn't want to try and like recast her or reshoot her or anything.
It would have been a disservice to do such a thing.
Yes, but they've done that in the past. Other movies have done that before.
I mean, other people have played Darth Vader, but that's been for specific
In Star Wars,
reasons.
they did that. They did it for Rogue One. They got some CG corpse up there to do, what's his name? The general.
Oh, yeah.
For Rogue One.
Tarkin,
yeah.
Well, that's because Peter Cushing died like 30 years ago.
But still, I mean, what's the difference?
But at the time, he was an established character who would have been there.
Okay. So don't you think that Leia would have been, I don't know, her death was dumb in the movies.
I mean, her death being at that point in time in her storyline makes sense that she's older and that happened.
This is her death. I feel something. And then she goes off and lays down and dies. And that was it. Because that's all they had shot of her from that movie.
Did she disappear like Yoda?
Did she? I think she did.
I think she does.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. Watch the movie, okay? That's going to be your punishment.
I don't want to watch that movie at all.
But, so I'm just saying, like, people are so concerned about what is and what isn't when it comes to being respectful, making sure these canons aren't overreaching and they're self-contained and make sense, and we stay within the reboot, sequel, whatever, reimagination genre, that we literally write a crap story because,
I feel like
we're too worried about the rules.
What they're doing, they're just setting themselves up for failure.
Well, because like a lot of this stuff, when it was made in the 80s and 90s, it was made to fit that generation. You can't a lot of this stuff you can't bring to modern society and still have the same feel because you're trying to fit it to today's morals and standards and all that.
Right.
Like, I mean,
it's like basically like a lot of these reboots. It's like if I set out to make a reboot of Star Wars, the original first movie, I'm already behind the 8 ball because I have to beat that.
Yeah.
I have to come up with that. And then everybody's going to be pissed off and mad because I'm rebooting it, and the expectations are going to be so much higher than they would be if I did something different.
Right.
And then they're all mad because they got the Wish version of Star Wars.
But the whole thing is, like, nowadays, people are so offended by everything. I'm trying not to offend everyone myself, but...
Yeah, the hell with them.
But you got to have every nationality, every, orientation that you can think of, to jam into this movie, whether it makes sense or not.
And there's there's nothing wrong with that unless you're doing it to prostrate. Look at all my minorities in this movie. In
diversity for just the sake of diversity.
That's racism in
my
opinion.
It's stupid.
There's no problem with having diversity, but make it make sense. There should be a reason this person is here for this, or for the Star Wars movies, Finn, he was pretty much just there to be.
I thought he was going to be a main character.
Well, so
from
did
The Force
Abrams.
Awakens.
And then I guess Rian Johnson shot that down. So
he was like, "No, I don't need him here."
Anybody could have done the exact same things he did. Anybody, you just could have thrown anybody in there.
He was an ultimate stormtrooper. He was just background character.
Yes.
And it blew my mind. He could use a lightsaber.
Well, he didn't. He just, he used it like you would anybody would use a sword. Now, the fact that he could keep up with Kylo Ren was embarrassing.
To Kylo Ren.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, you'll never be as powerful as Darth Vader. It's like Darth Vader, like, after fighting Luke, like, he would have mopped the floor.
So I guess in the end, like,
It doesn't even
if you really care a lot about seeing standalone movies and movies that don't take your nostalgia, I mean, honestly, I'll probably see Indiana Jones 5.
Yeah.
I will.
I would rather go see a standalone project I know nothing about. They're not in
Then
some
I have the
universe.
perfect solution for you. It's called the indie film scene. Do you know why indie films are blowing up? Because they're cheap films that can't afford to use current existing intellectual properties.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
They have to have their own ideas.
They have to have their own ideas.
Wow,
so
what a
everything is
concept.
new. Honestly, like the indie film market, I predict, this is my not expert, opinion on something, but I predict in 10 years, the indie film market will supersede the Hollywood elite market,
As well it
the
should.
octop elite.
Well, just because, I mean, anything you adapt, even if it's never been on film, if you adapt it from a book that was written in the 30s, it's not going to have the same, if a lot of people have read this book, it's not going to have the same tone if you try to adapt it to modern day. Because you're going to throw in that, but it's still an adaptation.
There's instances, though, where a book had come out and, like, they'd get the rights to the book and make a movie, like, within 5 years of the book being published.
Yeah, that's different, though.
That happens a lot. And there's very few instances where that movie is better than that book. Or it was such a popular book that the expectations were set very, very high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just like, it was
The only example
out.
I could think of is The Shining, where
Or Jaws.
The book was very popular, and then the movie was even more popular.
Jurassic Park, too.
I would say Jaws.
Well,
Not two, but Jurassic Park also.
I think Jurassic Park was written to become a movie originally. Like Michael Crichton had an idea, and then he and Steven Spielberg basically did the movie and the book together. So,
or Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
The-
that's a completely different story.
Yes,
that would be a reimagination.
That's a reimagination because the novel of that is very different.
Well, that's very pro-military.
It's very
Whereas
utopian.
what's his name? Van der Hoeven did basically a military satire with his movies. He was basically mocking a military mindset, a fascist kind of government. So, but yeah. So I don't know if you don't like indie stuff, or if you don't like reimaginations, reboots, rebootquels, remakes. Sequels, all that kind of stuff.
Recycle sequel bookles.
Tap into the indie market. I think that'll be something that you really appreciate. But if you have any opinions on this kind of stuff, if you have your own take on what we just talked about, reach out to our social media and we'll bring it up on an episode one day. But yeah, so thanks for sticking around for this little special, and we hope to see you for another 75 episodes. Goodbye.
Goodbye.